Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Health Me podcast, episode number 65. Welcome back to another episode of the Health Me podcast. During our episode, we address the topic of exercise compliance in physical therapy and how you can improve your chances of doing your exercises in home. As a physical therapist myself, an important part of my job is making sure patients complete their exercise program correctly, efficiently, and with the desired reps and sets. For the patient, it's your job to do them and provide feedback about how they went and how the exercises made you feel. However, doing these exercises can often be tedious, and it would be extremely helpful if your physical therapist would just pop up like a genie from Aladdin and remind you how to do your exercises. Although they haven't created a genie in a bottle, AC Health has created an app-based platform that allows therapists to send videos of themselves or their patients directly to their mobile device. This means no more paper handouts, no more general exercises, or exercises that don't even remind you how to do your specific exercise. AC Health represents what the future of exercise prescription looks like in physical therapy, and for our guest, it was her personal experience which ultimately drove her to create AC Health. As the CEO and founder, her sole mission was to take the therapist home with you and share her experience so others could benefit as well. Throughout our episode, we will hear about her story, but also discuss topics such as why patients often drop off from physical therapy, why the PT space is so crucial to the digital health space, and much more. As always, links for the podcast will be below, and stick to the end for the Health Me to Health You portion of the podcast. I introduce to you Susannah Bailin. Thank you so much for coming on the Health Me podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you today and everything you've been doing with AC Health.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, before we get into everything and the details of what AC Health is, I wanted everyone to kind of get on the same page. And that is by you discussing your journey into healthcare. You kind of had this interesting route where you were a patient and then you were motivated enough to start getting and working within healthcare. So maybe just describe your story and, how you got involved into healthcare.
Yep, absolutely. So I am a business person. I have an MBA. I've worked in a variety of industries. I've always come into it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So I had run a couple other companies, and I had started to develop a technology for authors who have written books that tell someone how to do something, right? That have instruction. And I have been in physical therapy. I'm 60 years old. So I've been in physical therapy since I was in my teens. I'm a runner. I've been a runner all my life. I'm an athlete. And so I was in my physical therapist's office, and in the old days, right, there was a notebook with exercises, and, they made a copy of a piece of paper and then wrote all over it. And then, so that's what I was used to. And then mobile technology appeared, and one of my therapists grabbed my phone out of my hand, which is a very scary, experience. And basically started using the camera and taking videos of me performing the exercises while he told me how to do them. And then he would hand me the camera and say, now take a video of me. I'm going to show you how to do this. And it changed my experience as a patient, right? So I told him that I had this technology and was wondering if he would be interested in beta testing this, because it helped me do my exercises so much more easily. Because he was just recording the exercises in my camera. So it was complicated. I had to go find them. I had to listen to the whole thing to hear sets and reps and everything. It was just not very well organized, a lot of friction. So in my technology, we could have all of that information and make it very easy and organized. So he said, oh my gosh, I would love to have technology to do this. It would help my patients have better outcomes because they're only going to be doing the exercises that I prescribed. and I'm going to be able to grow my business, right? I can differentiate myself from all the other PTs out there who are still using generic content. And so we gave it a shot. And that's how I got into healthcare. I'm still a patient.
Well, continually doing your home exercise program, right?
Right.
Well, what about the physical therapist, made you trust him? I mean, something that happens a lot in PT and other forms of healthcare, sometimes the patients have a little bit of reluctance to what the provider is giving them. And so, right off the bat, what made you so trustworthy into what your physical therapist was providing and how he was maybe doing something different than you've seen before?
Yeah. So as I said, I've been in physical therapy for decades. And I've been to the, with all due respect, physical therapy factories, right? Where you come in and your therapist is seeing at least 2, maybe 3 patients an hour. And you're a cog in a wheel, right? They're lovely. They're incredibly experienced. They know what they're doing, but I don't have the opportunity to have a relationship with them. I may be assigned to someone else when I come in for my next appointment. The amount of time we actually look in each other's eyes while we're talking about my pain or my diagnosis is very small. And so in those instances, I'm much less likely to trust to trust the experience, right? Because I feel like a statistic, not a patient.
Mm.
So I chose not to go to those factories anymore. And there's so many options now, right? There are physical therapy clinics everywhere. And I would just try a physical therapist until I found one who had, who wanted to create a relationship with me. And that made all the difference.
So it was when you're able to have the time with a therapist and they're able to really listen to, your scenario, your case, and seem that, at least from your perception, that they were caring more so than these other run-of-the-mill clinics, is when you really bought into what this therapist was teaching. And maybe that was the opportunity where he thought like, well, screw it, I'm not going to give you this paper if this isn't meaningful to you. I'm going to take your phone and I'm going to show you how to do this exercise correctly.
Yep, that's exactly right. There was a very famous study performed with doctors. They took a group of patients and split them in half. And they told the doctors who were seeing the first group to use this sentence. They both doctors, all of the patients were given instruction in order to heal, right? They all had a protocol of treatment that they had to follow. They told the doctors who saw the first group of patients to say this: there is a 75% chance that if you follow my instructions properly, you will heal completely. They told the doctors who were seeing the second group, I believe that if you follow my instructions exactly as I'm showing you, you will heal completely. The second group complied with their instructions 3 times more than the first group, and their outcomes were 4 times better. Why? Simply because their trusted provider said, I believe that if you follow my instructions, you will heal completely. Whereas in the first group, they were a statistic. There's a 75% likelihood that you will heal if you perform the instructions. And that study has been used in many hospital environments, because it was very clear that you have to trust, you have to have a trusted relationship with your provider in order to do the hard, boring, and painful things at home that they're asking you to do.
Well, this is an interesting conversation that I've thought about quite a bit, because I've really been diving into the idea of language and how important it is, just from my standpoint as a provider, but also what it means to patients. And the first conversation you have with the patient is really crucial. You want to set expectations. You want to make sure that the person in front of you is going to listen to what you have to say, correct? And going through continuing education and understanding different statistics, I don't want to lie to the patient, right? Like say they come in and they do have, say they injured their ankle a few times over and over again. They rolled their ankle. The chances that they're going to re-injure their ankle go up significantly more. And so you want to express that, but also in the same time, you want to tell them like you need to get better. And so it is an interesting dichotomy where you don't want to lie to the patient and tell them that like, you're going to get better if you listen to what I say, but you also want to tell them like what the statistics are. And so from maybe your perspective as a patient, was there ever a point where would you rather hear from a provider, like you're going to get better if you listen to what I say, or would you rather actually know like what the statistics are based on X, Y, and Z?
Well, I need to know that you're going to be able to solve my problem. And if my problem is that I'm in pain, then if you don't think that you're going to be able to take pain away from away from me, then I'm not going to come back. Right. I have to have my problem solved by my doctor. In fact, one of the reasons why I started in physical therapy is I hurt myself and I went to my MD, right? Because that's what we do. You're hurt, go to your MD. And what did she in this case say? I can give you a cortisone shot, right? That was the extent to which she could help me with my situation. And so once I went to a physical therapist and I saw the extent to which they understood my physiology, right? Where referred pain was different than, manual pain, this a whole lot better than I do.
Yeah.
But I saw that my MD was not going to be able to do as much for me as my physical therapist. So you're welcome to use statistics, right? If someone's interested in the science behind it, but the truth is we just want to get better. And that's why having a goal, right? You talk about language, having a goal that is written in the words of your patient is so critical. So when I went to see a physical therapist and they said, well, we're going to be able to increase your, we're going to increase your flexibility in your arm by going from 105 degrees to 135 degrees, whatever it was, that was meaningless to me.
Right. Yeah.
But I had 2 frozen shoulders.
Yeah.
So for me, if the goal is I can put on my athletic bra, right? Which I couldn't raise my arms. I certainly couldn't put on my bra. And you gave me that goal and you said, you do these exercises in this amount of time, you're going to be able to reach your goal. That engages me with you much more deeply because you understand what I need. You're helping me achieve that. And then I also want to please you, right? You're going out of your way to help me. If I don't do my exercises, right, then I'm letting you down as much as I am letting me down.
Right. So it's less about the knowledge. It's more about like making your goals meaningful and making sure that you feel that your rehab process is dedicated to you and the goals are ultimately to help you, and you make sure that you are complying with that exercise program so you can achieve those goals that are meaningful to you.
Right. And see progress, right? When we come to you the first time, we forget how badly off we were, right? Because as soon as you feel better, right? You don't remember, you don't have that like sense memory of how bad it felt. And you don't want to go back there, right? So if we have a goal and we see how long it's going to take, what I learned from my PT is first, I hope I'm probably going to get this wrong, but first you get function, take away the pain, then you stabilize, right? And then you strengthen, right? And once you get rid of the pain, a lot of patients don't come back anymore, right? Because you've solved the problem that I had when I came in. If, however, you're telling me in my first appointment that our goal is, in your instance, where the ankle rolls, right? That in order for us to prevent this from happening, I can help you now, right? And get you okay. But in order to help you prevent future situations, we have 3 jobs. We have help you now, stabilize, and then strengthen. I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to complete my course of care, right? I'm going to come to more appointments. You're going to make more money. I'm going to have a better outcome. Complete win-win.
Yeah, on every front. And, and that's thing that I focus on a lot too, is set expectations for how long this is. And, how like your therapist described, it's like in the beginning, it's going to be really important that we, decrease the pain and make sure that things are going well. But once the pain is away, that's when the work really begins, because now it's the part on you to really establish a habit to continue doing these exercises that I show you, and to really hone in on these habits that will hopefully prevent you from getting injured more or less down the road, because ultimately that's our goal, right? My goal as a therapist is to, never see you again, right? Because you're living your life doing the things that you want to do, right? And if, you do get injured, I'm always here for you. But that's something that I try to, communicate to my patients. It's like, I'm going to give you the tools and hopefully the ability to create habits that'll hopefully create lasting change in your life. And so much that you can live the life that you want to, and have tools to help mitigate pain when you do have it.
Well, your patients are very lucky.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I'd like to think so. I try to do my best, but, and, we are hovering around this idea of like patient dropout, right? Like, why do patients, fall off? And I suppose, like, do you think that this is one of the main reasons as to why patients drop off from home exercise programs, because their pain goes away and they're like, oh, problem solved. I need to, I can continue my life now. Or are there other things that maybe you found with the development of AC Health that you found that patients do drop out?
I think that's certainly if you don't begin treatment with an expectation of where you're going, then as soon as the pain is gone, sure, why should I come back? On the other hand, HEP is a huge component of this, right? So, and I like to simplify it by saying you have to find it, you have to trust it, and you have to be able to ask about it. Okay. So if you can't find your exercises, right, because someone's handed you a piece of paper, then that's going to keep you from doing them. Mm-hmm. If you don't trust that they are going to help you, and there's, this is an issue with standardized care now, right? Because you're going to show me how to do the exercise. You are then going to give me a video or a diagram of someone else doing the exercise. I have to remember the difference between what you've handed me and what you showed me. And I'm scared I'm going to hurt myself if I do it wrong. So that can be a point where I don't do it. And then the other piece is being able to ask you about it, right? So if I forget something, then I'm not going to do the exercise because I'm going to feel like I may hurt myself, and I'm going to wait to see until I see you again. And that's terrible for my recovery. So having in between session communication is what, I'm not sure if you've read this, but WebPT just completed a significant patient survey. And they determined that the single most important aspect of patient loyalty to your practice, growth of your practice, better outcomes, you name it, on every level, was communicating with patients between sessions. So that's the be able to ask about it piece, right? If I forget how to do an exercise, do I have to wait until I see you again? Is there a really easy way for me to communicate with you? And I believe it has to be video, right? Because it's really hard to describe why I can't remember how to do my exercise. I lifted up my arm, but if I can take a selfie video, right, and show you what I'm doing and say, I'm feeling it here. You told me I was going to feel it back here. What am I doing wrong? And you can watch that video on your time, be able to write me back. It's basically asynchronous telehealth, right? That is going to keep me engaged and motivate me to do what I'm supposed to do between sessions. So if you're communicating with me on a regular basis and I can communicate with you, it's highly unlikely I'm going to drop off. Maybe I can't get an appointment with you because you're such a great therapist that you have no time available. That's always an issue, right? Scheduling. Yeah. But beyond scheduling, it has to do with the relationship.
Well, how do you In communication, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in regards to just communication now, is there a certain style that maybe that research highlighted? Does it have to be like via email? Does it have to be through a messaging center, or what did they find in that manner?
You know, to be honest, so few therapists are actually communicating with their patients between sessions. There's no data.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
I wish there was. I wish I could say, a text of 7 words gets more attention than a text of 25 characters, but there's no data. Therapists are not not communicating with patients. There's new texting, right? But remember how busy a PT is.
Yeah,
Right?
I was gonna mention that too. It's just that there is a dichotomy. Physical therapists are becoming more and more busy and somewhat in some aspects burnt out. And how should a physical therapist try to manage that? Is it, how do you managing patients outside the clinic while you're in the clinic seeing other patients?
Right, exactly. So, we haven't started talking about AC Health at all,
Yeah.
but we have a feature which is called broadcast messaging, where you can send a text basically to all of your patients in one click that says, "How are you doing today? Hope you're feeling better. If you have any questions with any of your exercises, please let the office know." Or I'll be available for 15 minutes at 7 o'clock. You're welcome to send me a text or a video and I'll respond to it.
Well, since you mentioned it, let's get into exactly what AC Health is and the details. One way you describe it is disrupting the patient experience. So maybe just describe how that is your motivator to building AC Health and how it's driving you to continue building this platform.
Well, thanks for asking. I love that because, disruption is a word in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? That gets the attention of investors. It's really, that's really all it is. But I do feel very strongly that patient engagement has not been the way a patient needs to engage, right? We talk about patient engagement technology or patient engagement software, patient engagement, and in any form. And basically it's access, right? Can you make an appointment? Can you get your records? Can you see your billing statement, right? This is what's called patient engagement. Well, I'm sorry, that is administration, right? Those are the logistics of seeing someone in the healthcare, in healthcare. It is not patient engagement. When people talk about patient engagement, they're talking about behavioral change, right? How am I going to get my patient to do something differently so that they get better, right? If they have diabetes, how am I going to get them to change their behavior, to exercise more frequently, to eat a different diet? It has nothing to do with making an appointment or getting your records or seeing your billing statement, right? And so AC Health was developed to see whether having personalized instruction, right, would increase compliance. Would people's behavior change simply because they could find it really fast? They trusted it because it's their provider, and they could ask about it in between sessions. And what we found is yes, yes, and yes. It's not rocket science, right? This is a duh, right? I mean, this is a duh. Every physical therapist has been a patient. I talk about this with everybody. Everyone goes, yeah, I'd much rather listen or watch my provider reminding me what to do than having a generic library, video. And I'm going to have a better relationship when I'm listening to my provider talking to me at home. I want to bring my providers home with me. I want them there with me when I'm, doing what is hard, boring, so boring. You're asking us to do the same thing over and over again. It is so boring and painful in many instances, right? Hard, painful, boring.
Yeah, never the formula for to get anybody to do anything.
I mean, I have 3 kids. Hard, painful, boring. I'm going to have a really hard time getting them to listen to me.
Right. But crucial. And I like that you've highlighted the importance of habit change, because even from the second that I've gotten into healthcare, um, I've realized that it is a habit changing game. Like I'm not in the I'm in the people's game of like just helping people, but I'm also in the industry of changing habits. And there's a lot of components and factors that go into that idea. But being a healthcare provider goes into the idea of habit change, and why. And with your platform, has the ability to change habits improved, and how about after the fact too? Because it's not only just those initial visits, it's like this prolonged thing. And does AC Health have this ability for patients to use the platform beyond when they're discharged from a patient or from a provider?
Every discharged patient has access to all of their content forever. And in fact, providers can reach out to past patients, right? Which from a business standpoint is hugely profitable. But also from a reminder standpoint, right? Would you like some new exercises? You guys are constantly doing continuing ed. So there may be a new exercise to do that you have found really opens the hip flexor. Okay. So all of your past patients who happen to be runners, I can only do running, who struggle with their hip flexors, right? Because we're going in one direction all the time. Here I can get a notification from you that says, here's a new exercise, value add, right? I'm here thinking about you. I will habitually go into this app, and I'm going to hurt myself. I love the fact that you say, I never want to see you again. I appreciate that, but you will. You will. Right? We're living longer. We're doing more extreme exercises.
Sure.
Yoga, competition. My generation, right? The baby boomers. We will not get old. We will not.
Yeah.
We'll do everything we can.
Right.
And so we're exerting ourselves in ways that we shouldn't be, and we're going to get hurt.
Right.
So the habit of habit is, and there are many different, I'm sure you've read many of the books about it because obviously you care about it so much. Is it 3 weeks of doing something every day? Is it 6 weeks of doing something every day? Whatever it is. But the first step takes the most energy. That's physics, right? In order to create momentum, you have to start. So you have this opportunity when you see a patient for the first time to do anything you can to get them to start. Who cares why? Because if you can get them to do this every day for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, it's going to change their life. So in AC Health, and you can do this yourself, you don't even need, me, but reward compliance. Give people a way to accumulate points or exercise, whatever you want to do. In AC Health, we give you points every time you do an exercise, and they accumulate pretty quickly. And then there are rewards. They could be TheraBands or foam rollers or mats or something that will assist your treatment, right? But they could be gift cards. They, from a financial standpoint, and I'm a business person, the return on investment of a $25 Starbucks gift card when the patient is going to come to 6 more visits because they're so engaged is a duh, right? It's another duh. It's my favorite word of the day. So how do you get right? What can you do? And that's where the relationship comes in, right? This is fascinating. In the WebPT survey, they found out that PTs are biased, and they're biased in 3 ways. But the first 2 are associated with what we're talking about. So PTs are biased that athletes should work harder in their treatment.
Mm.
And athletes drop off most quickly because they say their HEP is too hard. PTs are biased that, couch potatoes, right? People can't do their exercises, so they give them too easy an HEP, and that's why they drop off.
Yeah.
Now, the third bias, which is something that I care very much about, is technology use, right? There are lots of PTs out there who think if you're over 50, you're not going to want an app. Are you over 60? You're not going to want technology. Okay, you could have made that argument 3 years ago. Post-COVID, that's an argument that you just have to let go.
Yeah.
My 85-year-old mother is texting me a little too much, I have to say.
Facebook too, right?
But right, exactly. So they're perfectly capable of clicking on an app.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the details of that. So just to be completely clear and very, transparent on like how to get the app. So you go in the app. So if you are a patient, you go in the clinic, you meet your physical therapist. They are a provider on the AC Health network. They can download the app, and then they are able to access their home exercise program with their provider doing all the exercises that they want to do. Correct?
Yeah. So actually, it's the provider who starts the relationship with AC Health. A provider goes into the App Store or Google Play, Android and iOS, and downloads AC Health and create an account. And you can add a patient and start using it immediately. We have a 30-day trial with no commitment at all. So anyone can just go in and download it. If a patient downloads the app and creates an account and their provider doesn't have an account in the system, there won't be anything there. So it all starts from the provider.
Starts with the provider. Got it.
And we're actually, just a little plug, about to launch the opportunity to have your own app on the App Store or Google Play. So instead of having to download AC Health, you can download Performance Physical Therapy. Your patients will just download your app, and it'll be the same. It's a white label option, so it's the same insides.
It'll be like a brand recognition thing, and certainly be helpful. And people be like, "You got your own app? That's pretty cool."
I hope so.
Well, I want to get back to the gamification thing. How have you found, have you found do you have any data on gamification in the point system? And have you found increased compliance with patients with exercise programs because of this?
Yeah. So it depends on the patient, right? It's a question of having a tool belt, right? And lots of different opportunities to reach that patient wherever they are. And for some patients, the paper is fine. For some patients, the video of a model wearing her athletic bra in front of a white, board doing it all beautiful, maybe that's enough for them, right? This gives you an opportunity to meet the patient where they are. So I will tell you that many people over the age of 60 love this. They love accumulating the points. They love the rewards. Athletes are highly competitive people. They're not as interested in the rewards, we found. They're more interested in having the most points of anyone in the clinic. So there are leaderboards where obviously you don't have your real name for privacy purposes, but Super Runner 1397 is at 250,000 points, motivates them to do their exercises. So it's a tool, right? And for those people who like it, it's made an enormous difference in the clinic. But I'm not going to tell you that it's right for everybody. That's where you come in to figure it out. But the patients, I have to say, patients love this. I mean, this is so easy. It is so, it solves all of our challenges, right? Mm-hmm. We can find it, we trust it, we can ask you about it. We've given a Net Promoter Score survey to over 1,200 patients who are in a couple of the channels. We got a 91, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with NPS scores, but it's off the charts. Again, this is not rocket science, right? So So patients love it, and providers who both are striving to give the highest quality of care to their patients and are looking for marketing opportunities. We have patient satisfaction surveys inside, which pop up after a certain number of appointments, and whoever gives you a 5 is sent an email, please write us a review on Google or Yelp. We have our own NPA, and the providers can choose, you can opt in or not opt in, right? So everything is, we're trying to support as many opportunities for providers to grow their practices as they wish.
From standpoint of, we're talking about just like use and how easy it is to use. From a standpoint of development, one thing that is difficult for many of us is just our bandwidth throughout the day, right? We have so many apps, we have so many things technology wise that allow us to take our attention away, right? And then, I'm sure during the development of this app, you wanted to develop something that is easy to use, but not so easy that people dismiss it, but not something too hard that people don't want to get involved with this. So like, what was that like, trying to develop something that was, easy to use and something that is helpful, and make it as not as attention, not so much that it completely takes your attention away or is like too easy, or something that is way too difficult or too much of a hill to go over in order to complete your home exercise program? Does that make sense?
It makes great sense. And I love that question. So what you do when you develop technology is you test, you test, you test, you test. You have an assumption, you collect as much data as you can to make sure that it's not, that there's some probability you're right. And then you put it in the hands of your users as soon as you possibly can. We spent 2 years testing with patients first, right? Because if patients aren't going to use it, then what's the point, right? So we simplified and simplified and simplified to the point where their care plan is on the screen. When they click on the app logo, their care plan is there, and they can click on the exercise. They don't even have to, actually, because once you've done an exercise a number of times, you remember how to do it. What we don't remember is the reps and the sets. So we put that right on the card of the exercise, so they can just open it, remember how many reps and sets, go and do it. And then at the bottom, if they want to send a message, if they want to set a reminder for when, we tested all of the different features to see what did people care about, what did they use? So that's how you develop technology. In fact, I'll give you a little example. When we first created the reminder, we allowed people to make a reminder, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. And guess what? People blew through it. Why? Because who knows what Wednesday at 9 a.m. is going to be in this day and age, right? So we went back to the drawing board and looked at the research and found that you can only really create a reminder for the next time you're going to do it. Because you can have an idea in the next 24 hours when you're going to have time. And the number of people who got the reminder and then went into the app and did their exercises went through the roof. So that's why the testing is so important. And the same thing with the provider, right? Boy, does it have to be fast and easy for you guys. In fact, you know what? And I'm constantly learning from you, and I love it. So look how many EMRs there are out there, right? And the notes, right? So first we thought, well, we need to integrate with all the EMRs. And then it became clear, no, we don't. All we need to do is be able to copy and paste. So there's one click, you copy the HEP that you've just developed for the patient. It's all there, right? And then you go into whatever notes thing you have to go in anyway, and you click paste, and it's done, right? And it's time stamped and all of that. So I can tell you all the things we did badly too. If you're, if you have about a week and a half, you want to talk to me. But that's really the cadence of developing technology.
Well, I love that you talked to the providers, and we've talked about patient feedback, but it seems like the providers have been using it effectively as well. And you said that they've been having positive feedback for the platform. But I do want to ask, we did discuss this earlier, how providers are getting more and more busy, and how did you think about that in regard to, you kind of already alluded to it a little bit, but how did you consider, how busy therapists are and how we can make it streamlined and super easy for the provider to integrate that in their clinic.
Yep. So one of the complaints we heard from providers was that they had to spend so much time after the session sending the HEP.
Yeah.
Right. Either at night they had to spend a couple, they were on their computers or whatever. And we removed that, right? Because it's complete when the patient leaves. It's done. So it has saved however many hours you were spending sending that email of exercises, and you don't even know if they're doing them, right? I mean, that aside that, you don't have to do that anymore. You're done when they leave. And that has really freed up PTs. In fact, some of our most excited have families, right? And have kids, and they are really struggling with, I get home, I just want to focus on my family and have dinner, but I know that I have all of these emails that I have to send, or trying to find time during the day. And then they don't do as good a job, right? Because you can go through those libraries of exercises and just go, okay, fine, because you're in such a rush. Right. So they may not actually be exactly the right exercise. A lot of our therapists told us, these libraries have 7,000 exercises in them. We basically prescribe like maybe 50 of them. Occasionally maybe we need something, but it's overwhelming for us. So this way they can also create their own library in our app, so they can have the top 50 exercises that they prescribe to everybody, and in one click just add it to a care plan and then edit it within the care plan. So it has sped up and saved them time.
It was the upfront time consuming, and that the provider has to build out 50 exercises that they want to include in their clinical practice? Or
generally most of our therapists add to their library during the first sessions as they start using it, because you can, as long as the patient is taking a video of you, right? Obviously, you're not going to put any patient information in the library. So they start by demonstrating the exercises. So the patient takes the video of them, they add it to the library, and then they put it into the care plan. And within, like 2 weeks, with all the patients you see, they have 100 exercises in their library. And now some therapists prefer, because it's so fast, just to make them for the patient, and have very few in their library. So it really depends on how you practice.
Got it. So it's more of an integration process where there is this time period where you're building, you're developing, and, creating all these different exercises that you want to integrate within your practice. And some providers either just make the exercise program on site with their patient, or they build a catalog that they can continue to go back to and build on.
Yeah, that's right. And we actually, for a certain level, we'll send a videographer to your studio, your practice, on a Sunday for 3 hours or whatever. And they'll take, and they'll do 40 exercise. They'll videotape you doing 40 exercises and you're done. So that's a piece of it too.
Well, I love the idea of AC Health. I love that it's easy to integrate. It's something that that patients and providers both love, and both can integrate to form habit change. Now, in the grand scheme of things moving forward, healthcare does need to change. And a lot of it does rely on habit formation, whether you're talking about diabetes or you're talking about anything for that matter. How or have you planned to use the information that you've taken from AC Health to maybe help implement other areas of healthcare?
That's a great question. And because we do not have any content in our technology, right? It's all uploaded by the provider. We are a content delivery system, basically.
Yeah.
So all of the data that we're collecting about how patients engage on a more regular basis can be applied to any instance in which a provider gives a treatment plan to a patient. So at this time, we have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, and mental health practitioners using the program. But it is built for any use case. So in my dreams, right? we are collecting the data that will help providers pick the protocol that is most efficient to affect the change that they're going for. So even in physical therapy, right? I've been to many physical therapists and they all have a different way to do clamshells, let's say, right? Which is the clamshell that is the most effective for a, left-handed sprinter whose left leg is shorter than their right leg, right? Like that kind of content is possible through artificial intelligence. And it's not really artificial intelligence, it's machine learning. Anytime you hear AI, I think just machine learning, that the more the data points we can put in, the faster the computer can see pattern, right? Much more quickly than a human brain can. So that's, that's a dream state.
Sure.
But I know, and from studying behavioral change, that it is highly individualized. There is no one way. For example, BJ Fogg, who is sort of the grandfather of habit change, he's at Stanford University. He's written many books. He actually has an app called Tiny Habits. It's something that you might be interested in looking at. His view is that you need a trigger event in order to perform a new activity, right? So let's say you're trying to change your behavior and take supplements, right? And you keep forgetting to take them because you have to take them when you eat and then you forget whatever. He would say, to create, to put them all in those little pill boxes, right? And then put them next to the refrigerator so that when you open the refrigerator to have lunch, you see the pills and that will trigger the action. That's just a little example, but that's a different way of thinking of behavioral change. So instead of saying, I want to do this more, I think, what do I do every day the same way? I go have lunch. I brush my teeth. I take the dog for a walk. Whatever. Okay, so now I am going to pick one of those behaviors that's already a habit and attach one that I want to develop onto one I already have. So again, if we learn about, if that's really the way to get people to do their exercises, for example, then how can we trigger, right? What can we use as a trigger to encourage the activity? Now, I believe that notifications, having a goal, having progress updates in video, like these are the things that you can send a patient and say, this is where you're going. Like you could send them a meme or whatever of a person doing whatever it is they're trying to do, like putting on their, you can find a meme of someone putting on an athletic bra, right? Send it to me. Trigger.
Well, I think when you described, notifications and stuff, I think that's good for maybe like long-term use. But one thing that, you discussed earlier was like the momentum thing, right? And we all know that there's an issue in the US with both weight, obesity, and just exercise in general. And do you think the change or the momentum to overcome that starting point of like getting started with exercise and just getting over the momentum of just becoming someone who is fit, right? Because that's the goal, is becoming someone who exercises. Do you think that's going to be something that is human driven, or you think that's going to be something that's technologically driven, where we need someone, either we need someone to show you like, this is what you need to do, or there's a technology that does it for you?
Yeah, I think it's, I'd like it to be a partnership, but for a human being, right? So technology changes very quickly. People, not so much, right? Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is the key of behavioral change, right? Is this important to me, or am I doing it for you, right? And those are, as I said, very personal things, right? One person is going to be highly motivated if I'm a competitive athlete and I want to have the highest score of compliance, right? I am extrinsically motivated to comply, right? If my daughter is getting married in April and I want to fit into the dress I want to wear, right? That's intrinsically motivated to lose the weight for that event. You have to help people find what is going to motivate them. It's not a standard. It's not standard. And you can do something which will be temporary, right? But in order to maintain sustainable behavioral change, someone has to be ready to make that change. They have to be thinking about that change. They have to have an easy way to start. They have to have a lot of support continuing through until they reach a milestone, and they can celebrate that milestone and then start from scratch again.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing that, like, yeah, I like the idea of having it both, because I think humans are really, generally humans, especially providers, are really good at finding intrinsic and extrinsic motivators for, patients or other people. I think as our own biases, I mentioned bias as a physical therapist. I think we all have our own biases in understanding what we truly want sometimes, and understanding like what are our actual intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. And I think until we can recreate the human through like technology, I think providers or somebody is going to have to be that spark to, be like, okay, well, this is what's motivating you, or like here's your reminders. And technology can be a way to help do that, or extend yourself, a part of yourself, for the patient, for the person, whoever, to stick with a goal and hopefully create long-lasting habit change.
I couldn't agree with you more completely. We want to take you home. We can't take you home. Technology lets us take you home. It's you who are the most important aspect of our treatment. You are a limited resource. You can scale yourself in technology. And so that's very exciting. And I hope when you talk about burnout, I believe that it's because many physical therapists have become librarians. They are no longer clinicians in a way. And I hesitate saying this because it's a terrible thing to say. But when you are if your incentive is throughput, the more people you can see, the more people you can see, the more people you can see, right? You have to give up something, right? You're making less money per reimbursement, right? What are you going to give up? And in many cases, it becomes that clinical diagnosis, that connection, that medical relationship. Once you start handing your patients you, and they can take you home, they're going to come back and say, you've changed my life. You've made a difference. I've never felt this good. I hear people talk about their PTs all the time because that's all I talk about is PT. And someone will say, I never thought I was going to play golf again. I never thought I was going to run. Their physical therapist has changed their life. If you were receiving that comment from patients, you wouldn't burn out so fast.
Right.
You would feel empowered, important. And that's my fear, is that as physical therapy becomes more standardized, that there's it's more library based, it's using technology to to show people how to do their exercises on a screen. There's really no trained physical therapist even associated with your experience, right? That we are going to lose a very powerful part of our medical system, which is your expertise with our body.
Yeah. And I think that's already happened with physicians too. I think, the time management piece is already a huge issue. And I could see it definitely stemming down to, unfortunately, physical therapy as well. But hopefully we can combat this with the help of technology and, spin it in a way that we are in control and we are the ones trying to provide lasting change, and hopefully get us away from this idea of librarian, because that's not what I want to do, right? Like, that's not how I want to treat. I want to be able to be someone who does create lasting change for my patients, and be somebody who has, to your point, help somebody and have them overcome something that they didn't think they were going to do, because that is the most rewarding part of this job.
And we'll pay for that.
Right. Anybody will, right?
Everybody will, even those who have to struggle to do it, because our physical health is more important than anything else. Always.
Yeah. And do you think that's going to be something that we're going to have to change as people in general, as we have to really understand and prioritize our own health? Because I think sometimes people take it for granted, and maybe, some people, I find it that sometimes people do take it for granted, and that their physical health, their physical strength is something that allows them to do everything on a day-to-day basis. And then they come to PT and they're like, man, I didn't think this was going to be an issue. Like, I thought my body was just going to hold me up, and do you think we're going to have that stigma might have to change in order for us to kind of see change?
What's hopeful is that while the internet is generally giving you access to standardized information, right? It is an educational, planet. I mean, it's a new world, right? Where you can learn so much about everything. I just found out that my balance is terrible, right? Balance is so important, right? So I do believe there's enormous opportunity with physical therapists. You can represent every aspect of what we need to do to age well, starting when you're 30. I know it sounds crazy. You 30-year-olds think you're just going to be fine for the rest of your life, but God willing, you'll be my age one day, and you'll realize that we break down.
Yep.
We can't help it. We break down. How do you prepare for that? Right? And it's not just about fixing a problem. It's about, it's about understanding what you have to achieve and maintaining it over time, right? My visual acuity, my cognitive abilities, they're diminishing at the same time, right? So just because I may have great balance in my 30s, I'm skiing, I'm playing tennis, right? That's going to shift. And so when do I have to start working on that? Wouldn't it be amazing if physical therapists started thinking about that? I have a patient who's X age. Not only am I going to treat their problem, get reimbursed for that, whatever, but I'm going to offer them a subscription service to a program that they can use for the rest of their life, that's going to teach them about stretching, about balance and strength, core, which part of your large motor skills are you going to lose first? Do you want to be able to walk until you're 95? Because you're probably going to live until you're 95 now, right? So here are the muscle groups that you have to work on. And you can send them a series of exercises, information, podcasts, but seriously,
everything.
right?
Yeah, right.
Through technology for very little. This doesn't cost anything.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it does cost something. I don't want to be, I don't want to sound silly. Of course it costs something, but it's very inexpensive to be able to support your patients. And let me tell you something, they will pay you for that. As soon as you've helped them with any situation and they know that you're thinking about what they're going to need in the future, you're missing an opportunity if you're not, health and wellness. I know everyone talks about health and wellness, but these are physical therapy protocols, not personal training videos or Peloton protocols, right? This is a doctor telling you what you need to do if this happens, to become, to get, to connect with me, right? It's a long-term relationship. I think there's tremendous opportunities for physical therapists.
I couldn't agree more. I think we are the best tool to introduce people to exercise, but also to be life navigators for people who want to exercise for the rest of their life. So I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. And definitely continues to motivate me to, be better and continue to help people. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing with AC Health, and also, you being so passionate about it, because it's not very common you always see patients be as motivated as you are. So I do appreciate your attention to detail. And
well, there are more people like me.
Of course
there are more people like me. Again, I talk to people all the time. I went to a concert yesterday and I sat next to a guy who just went into PT, and he said, my doctor tells me to go online and look at a YouTube video. And he said, I need to be diagnosed because I can hurt myself. We are scared we're going to hurt ourselves. And that's where you can get in. I'm so sorry. That's where you come in. If you know we're scared of hurting ourselves, you can use that. I mean, I'm not asking you to become manipulative and use fear, but I'm not sure you men and women, and those who are non-binary, don't think about how scared we are. This is something you're a doctor. We have more anxiety around it. So I love Life Navigator. I think you should change your name to Life Navigation Physical Therapy.
There you go. I'll do that right now. I'll go out and get the LLC right now. Well, listen, Susannah, we're right down to the end here. I really appreciate everything that we've discussed today. I think, everyone's going to get a little bit out of our conversation today, whether you're a patient, you're a provider, or just somebody who's just generally curious about exercise. I thought our conversation was super thought-provoking, and I'm hopeful this will continue to help more and more people. And especially with what you're doing with AC Health, I'm sure you'll continue to see great things and help more and more people. So thank you again for coming on today.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to chat with you. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, let's wind down to the final part of the podcast. This is the Health Me to Health You portion of the podcast, where I ask all the guests the same 3 questions. Are you ready for these questions?
Yes, sir.
All right. First question. If you had the attention of everyone in the world for 30 seconds, what would you say?
I'd say, if you knew you had no control over the outcome, how would you change your behavior?
Definitely some thinking about that one. So.
Yeah, it's a little profound. I apologize, but I do think that letting go, really thinking about what you can control and what you can't, frees you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Second question. What book do you recommend, whether a book you're reading now or in the past?
And I'm sure many of your listeners have read this. It's Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck.
You're the third person like in the past month or two to recommend that book, which is great, which is fun. Boring. It's just good. It's just reassuring that you should definitely go out and read that book. Mm-hmm. Last question. Where can people learn more about you and what we talked about today, as well as AC Health?
Thank you for asking. The website is ac-health.com. The app is AC Health in the App Store and Google Play. You can download that. You are more than welcome to get in touch with me. I love meeting people. So I can be reached at Susannah with an H, .Bailin at ac-health.com. And I would love to hear feedback because again, I have to learn from providers and patients in order to develop the best platform we can.
Absolutely. If you are a provider who's thinking about doing it, make sure to reach out as soon as possible. And if you're a patient, make sure to give feedback as well. Susannah, thanks again for coming on the podcast today.
My pleasure.